Hello there, Reason people, PoohBear here and welcome to my channel. And today we're going to be having a look at a way that we can do automatic panning, which isn't going to be using automation or even using box standard LFOs and this sort of stuff. We're going to be doing it slightly differently today. And I kind of use this method, and I've actually have used it in tracks as well, where I really do want to have a ping pong effect going on, and the timing can be totally different. I am going to be using some fixed timing for this demonstration, mainly because someone asked about, oh, they wanted to do some hi-hat with audio, so we're going to be having a look at some audio stuff as well. So let's have a quick demonstration. So you can actually see in this audio, I've got myself some stuff which is box standard set up, and an LFO would actually pan this perfectly. And then we've got it going fast. So we're going to have a very fast LFO if we want to do that. And then you have to be careful if it's going fast, is it then going to start chopping stuff off? And then I've got some stuff which is irregular timing. So if you think about it, if I had a box standard LFO which was going left, right, left, right, left, right, well, left, right, that should be left again, but it's not. It's going to go left, right, and even the funnier gap there, left, right. So it's going to do that. So let's have a quick listen. You know what I'm talking about. So hopefully you could hear that okay. And I'm going to do it with a Kong as well. So I've got this set up and you'll be able to see the panning actually happening. And it doesn't matter if I waited half an hour, I could then hit the pad again and it's going to go obviously to the left. And if I want to go quick, I can go quick. Or as you can see, I can go slow as well. So these methods are great. These are quite quick. I mean, this pan flow is actually quite a nice little utility. But as I say, the disadvantage of these methods is you're like, especially with this particular one, how I've set it up, you are set to how you've done it. You're set to the speed, you're set to it. If I started to play extra hi-hats, it's not going to pan. It's going to be fitted into this space and then that space, which can give quite a nice effect, you know. So even a box standard LFO will give quite a nice effect. Where I think something like this pan flow really comes in handy, this is a free device by the way, is you can get some really weird and wonderful shapes, and that's where I think these other utilities do come in handy. But this is just some box standard automatic panning, so I think let's have a look at this and we'll go right from the beginning, and there's going to be a few little tricks you're going to learn along the way, one hopes. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing we're going to want is a good old Kong, and then I'm going to want myself a simple little sample. So where's my Kong? There it is. Being a little bit blind. Yeah, that'll do. Hi-hat, that'll do. Let's grab up that. Actually, using a hi-hat for this particular demonstration is quite good because the hi-hats can prove to have some issues, which we will talk about as well. And of course, you can do this kind of method with synthesizers. You don't have to use Kong, you can use any kind of drum machine, or you don't even have to use drums. As I say, it can be anything you want. So at the moment, we've got ourselves something really box standard, and that's what we want to start panning around. And in fact, I'd probably come back to this, but let me see if we can get this zoomed in a little bit. Because the shape of this is actually going to be quite important. As you can see, the actual sample is slightly offset between the channels. They've more likely done this, so there's no sort of phase issues going on and the way they recorded it. And it makes it sound probably a little bit wider as well, obviously, when you're playing it in the stereo field. But anyway, we'll come back to that. So that's the actual waveform that we're going to use. And as I say, we now just want to do a simple pan from left to right. And obviously, if we use to open up the mixer channel at the top and have a quick look at this, you can see we've got ourselves a nice little pan port. So that's what we want to actually control. So let's grab ourselves Thor. Thor's a really, really powerful device. I'm actually just going to just turn these top things off. That actually says off there, and that says bypass. Sorry, because the text is really small because the way I've zoomed in. We're only going to be using the bottom section. As I said, Thor, yeah, very, very old device, but very, very powerful. And in fact, I think this device still has a few tricks up its sleeve what nothing else can do. No other paid devices can actually do within reason. So what we're going to actually do is We want to be able to say, right, when I hit my pad, as I said, I want to pan to my right, and then if I hit my pad again, I'm going to pan to my left. So this is what we're actually going to be setting up right now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this edit and I'm going to pull this down to curve 1. Step number 1, I'm going to pull all the way down. Sorry, my mouse is going a bit funny, to a 0. And the second one, we're going to push all the way up to a 127. And in fact, even though this is saying 0, it is a 0. But this 127 is a 1 volt. So in the back end CV world, we're going to be passing out 1 volt. Oh, there's this steps here, so you can actually change the steps by using this step counter. But I like to just click on the light to change them that way. We're going to be turning sync off. And I'll be talking about sync a little bit later because it has a positive and negative effects. At the end of the day, when you understand what the positive and negative effects could be, you can use them to your advantage. We're going to turn this into step mode. And so, as standard in Reason, you want something turned on, you give it high voltage. You want it turned off, it drops to a low voltage. What we're going to be using Thor for, which makes it very, very unique, we're going to push a voltage into it, and then we're going to turn something on. We've got to push another voltage back into it to actually turn it off. So dropping it to 0 volts doesn't turn it off. So when we hit a pad, we're going to turn something on, e.g. pan right, and then when we hit a pad again, we're going to turn something off, or in our case, pan left. And that's what we're going to do. So we're going to actually control what this run button is actually going to be doing. And we can actually do that very, very simply. I'm just going to take the gate out into the trigger in here. And now when I hit my pad, you'd see we're moving from one side to the other. But obviously, we're not doing any panning just yet. But we can say, yeah, this is working. This is working. This is what we want. So what we're going to do is we're going to come into the source here. And what you're going to need to select is right at the bottom, step sequencer. That's actually saying curve 1. So we want S curve 1, because that's what that one is there, curve 1. The destination where we're going to be going to is actually going to be a CV output. So that's going to be CV output 1. And I'm just going to push that voltage right up. And I'll tell you what I'm going to quickly grab so you can actually see, and this will be easy to see. You don't need this device, it is purely for your benefit so you can actually see what's going on. So let's quickly grab that dual analyzer down here and let's just very quickly wire this up. And I'm going to wire up, this is what's called curve 1 out, which I'm going to be putting into this side. And then in this side, I'm actually going to go to the CV1 output. So let's flip round to the front. And at the moment, as you can see, they're both on 0 volts. And if I can hit the run button or I can hit the pad. So if I hit the run button, you can see they both go to 1 volt. 0 volts, 1 volt. Now, with panning, we need 1 volt to go, say, to the right, and we need minus 1 volt to go to the left. And if you actually look at the voltages, what we've got from a 0 to a 1. So we've got to change this voltage, so it's actually going to go from a plus to a minus. And in fact, before I actually even do that, I'm going to grab this so you can hear things as we go along, and I'm going to put it into the pan. So then theoretically, he says, if I now hit this, you can hear 1 pan into the right, then center, right, then center, right, and center. So this is actually going to be quite simple what we're going to do. We can do this all within Thor. We're going to select another destination. So we've got destination 1. So curve 1 is going to destination 1, and curve 1 is also going to go to destination 2, which, guess what? It's actually going to be the same destination. It's going to be CV1 again. So why am I doing it to CV1 and CV1? Well, this time, as you can see, I've got 0 volts coming out the curve 1, and this output is coming into this meter here. So this time when I hit run, we've got 1 volt standard, 2 volts we've now got coming out. As I said, we need -1 to +1. I'm going to turn this button on, which is actually going to give me a full volt. So again, if I come down to here and we're going to modifiers, button number 1, I want that to go to CV1 out, but I'm going to grab this and put this into -100. And you can see this has already dropped down to 1 volt. That said 2 volts before, because obviously 2 minus 1 is 1. And 0 minus 1 is -1. So here's our -1, and there's our +1, which means if we come over here, we're now panning left to right. Now, if you remember earlier, I said, hey, let's have a look at that waveform. You can see there's a little glitch when we go from one side's perfect and one side's got a little glitch. You can actually hear it just every now and then. You can hear a little extra click when you shouldn't. And the reason being, as I said, that if we looked at this waveform, what happens is this, we're clicking, which is obviously going off, and it's changing. One way, it's absolutely fine. It doesn't matter if it's slightly delayed, because obviously it's empty. But when we come the other way and it's slightly delayed, it's picking up this one and then it's playing that bit. So the other one, because there's a big white gap there, it doesn't matter, there's a slight delay. So what that means is we've got to put a slight delay in there. If we put a slight delay in there, we can get this working perfectly. So again, under utilities, I'm actually going to grab out the VMG. There we go, that's what we want. For those who haven't used this device, this is a free device, and this was originally the way we done delay compensation before delay comp come around. This is what you'd actually use, and it's given in samples as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to brutally just shove that up very quickly, and you can see instantly we've now haven't got that glitch anymore. So let's put it into bypass. You can see they'll have that little glitch. And you can hear it as well. I don't know how it's going to come across on YouTube, but I can definitely hear it. And there we go. Brill. And obviously I can play around with this to get this a little bit more perfect, so I can actually obviously get the timing down quite a bit, because obviously 300 samples is quite a bit. My brain's not working at this time of the night, which is going to be around about at least 6 milliseconds. It could be slightly more. So I'm running at 44. Usually I run at 48, so I know where I am when I do these sort of timings. But hey, it's working. Cool. What can we do with the audio? Well, let's first of all build ourselves a little pattern out. I think that's to be the first thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do on the keyboard, let's do Control D a few times. There we go. Control A, and then I'm going to do Control J to join the clips, and then I'm just going to do another 2. And this time I'm going to just grab, whoops, I'm in edit mode there. Whoops, didn't mean to be there. Let's grab them 2, and I'm going to do a Control J again. Hold my Control key down and then shrink that right down. That'll do for the moment. Don't like that, so I'm going to delete that out of the way. So then theoretically we got, yay, so we got ourselves something. So let's turn that down just a wee bit as well. So now what we need to do is we need to start getting this panned. So at the back, he says, oh, sorry, I was hitting the button, I wasn't turning the stuff around. So this pan, well, we've already got it set up. We already got it set up in Thor, so we can actually use that output here. So I could go into that actual output there. By the way, as I said, you don't need this device. So in fact, I will go into that and I'd bypass the dual CV source altogether. So the panning's there, but it's not there because obviously we're only hearing it out of one side, because that's how that's set up. Obviously, if I was to hit that key, we're now going to hear it out the other side. So we need to get this to obviously to fire a signal to actually change this run. That's what we need to do. And we can actually go and use a follower to do that. One of the more common followers I use nowadays is actually Sweeper. I have done a video in the past about envelope followers, and we really are sport for choice in reason which followers to use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this from on onto bypass, because we're not actually going to use the Sweeper itself. We're interested in the envelope follower side, so I'm going to turn that on. We might need to play with the threshold. That's something you just need to do in the background. As you can see, when I hit play, we've got this going. So here is a trigger out, so I'm going to take that trigger out and put that into the gate in. And you can hear instantly we're going from one side to the other. And in fact, I'm just going to slow that right down now. And you can hear some funnies going on there when you slow it right down. And what the issue is the similar sort of issue what we had before. Because we're working on the audio, we're taking the audio, we're firing off a signal, the signal's going off over here. Unfortunately, I'm actually in DX mode on my drivers rather than ASIO mode, so I can't get my nice low buffer size. And so there's going to be a delay. So we are behind because we're working from the audio. When we work from Midi and we're working from this, and in fact, I need to obviously show you the Midi side of things. I should show you a few more tricks a little bit later. It's a slightly different. So we're working behind, not a problem. Let's do what we did before. Let's grab that VMG. And we can use that in here. As I said, don't forget I've actually, even though I put Sweeper in bypass, obviously it's still going to push forward all the audio. So maybe that might do it. You might even have to go higher. Let's have a listen. Not too bad. Yeah, not bad at all. So that's cool. Great. So we've got that side working. So how can we get the, you might say, well, okay, we've used Thor, we've used a trigger, sorry, we've used Kong and a trigger out of Kong to fire into Thor. What about if we actually had Midi all set up to do our drums, or was using something else? Well, not a problem. So let's actually have a quick look at that. So I'm just going to mute that one out, and let's quickly create ourselves something in here. What do I need? I need to go there, double click. Here we go. And so let's put something like that in. Let's just quickly grab that there, and then do my control D's here. There we go. Let's just keep it simple, nice and simple for the moment. So there's two things we can actually do. We can collapse that down. Cool. Obviously, I can take a copy of this MIDI data and just drop it on top of Thor. And if I do that, that's one way of doing it. So I can just take this MIDI data here and just drop this on top of Thor. Now, to get this to actually work in Thor, we've got to actually program it, because at the moment, we've still got it going to one side only. So in the source, what we can do with Thor, if we scroll all the way down, there's an option there what refers to as MIDI key, and we want one what says gate. So we're going to grab that out. So it says MIDI key gate. We're going to give that the full amount. And the destination is going to be going off to the step sequencer, and the option where we want here is trig, which is at the very, very top. So whenever it gets a bit of MIDI data, it's going to trigger and it's going to fire off the run. Oh, and it is working, except for I rewired my pan, didn't I? I removed it. That's why I probably was leaving it originally going through the dual, so I could actually split it. Okay, so what happens if you've got yourself a drum pattern written in here? So let's grab some of these and go bosh and say, I was going to keep it really boring. I'm going to put that in there. And the reason I'm going to put that in there, and then I'm going to quickly duplicate that out. Let's get rid of that. And then I'm just going to grab that, put that down there. Yeah, that's good enough. Let's clean this up a little bit. So now we've got double in here. Obviously, it's not going to affect what we're hearing from Kong because we've only got one sound, but it's going to come out of one speaker only. It's actually working, but it's obviously it's going. I'm going to flip, play the sound. I'm going to go back, and I'm going to flip to play the sound again, and I'm going to go back because what Thor is doing, it's working on every single. These are now separate notes, so on every note, it's going to trigger. So it's going to say, "Hey, I'm going to push it so it's on this side," and you can hear the sound. But we're not hearing a drum sound, and we move to the other side, and then we're coming back again. So we keep hearing on one side only. So if you had loads and loads of obviously different notes all over the place, it's not going to quite work. However, if you remember, or I say remember, I did a video literally a few days ago where I used a little device, and we can use that device again. It's a player device. I don't know where I'm going here, which is called UTL. There we go. That's what we want. And on here, we can do filter by notes. Don't think, oh, look, we've got a note set here, which would be equivalent of anything's going to play my C1. Well, that's not going to help us. What we want to do here, we want to filter the notes, and we want to put that on C1, and I'm going to put that one on C1. Oops, I've gone a bit too far. There we go, C1, C1, and then theoretically, it should now work. And we can hear the panning again because it's now ignoring that extra note. It's now ignoring this extra notes. Now, you could even go one step further and say, hey, let's be really lazy and say, well, I'm forever changing my drums. I don't want to keep copying them down and keep copying them down. Well, that's not a problem either, because what we can actually do there is obviously we can put the Kong at the top here. I'm just going to highlight the Kong. I'm going to highlight Thor. And we're just going to say combine them up. And obviously the only thing I've got to do here is obviously just grab this MIDI and actually say I'm going to play the combinator. So now I can carry on writing all my different bits and bobs. We can hit play. It's going to work correctly because this is going to filter things, so it doesn't matter if I come into here and say, oh yeah, I want that there, and I want that there, and I want other things. If you're used to, remember, if you're doing Kong stuff, you might look at this and go, oh, I don't like the piano roll, that's why I always do it. But don't forget, you can come over here, and I think I've just gone onto the wrong screen. It's that one above it, isn't it? Sorry, everything's a little bit smaller for me. And put it into edit mode there, and just bring up the only thing is you don't actually get to see what the nice instrument names are, but I'm pretty sure everyone can count and they know roughly where they are. And there you go. So that's it now working. So it's working there, which is coming through to here. Brilliant. We've got ourselves the audio stuff, so we can do audio stuff if we wish. And you've also obviously learned a very, very powerful trick with Thor. As I say, this is like the only device I can think of which can do what it's doing. One thing I haven't spoken about actually is the sync. That's right. I'm glad I came back down here. Now, the sync option is an interesting option within Thor when it's turned on. In fact, let's turn it on, and I'm going to turn it and make it go slow. And then you're going to like this. He says, let's make it go a bit slower. So I've got problems with my mouse today for some reason. And I've still got my trigger in. Right, my trigger in's coming from there. So I'm just going to put this trigger and actually trigger this directly from Kong. I'm just going to bring Kong down. So I just want to try and get everything on the screen at the same time so you can sort of roughly see what's going on. So let's actually just get rid of my browser stuff, which is that one there, I think. Yeah. Right, so you could hear it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be pressing this quite quick. So what's actually happening is when I press it, the run comes on, and you can see the run, it stays on for a little while. And this is to do with the sync time. So if I was to go even slower, really slow, and hit it, we can see it stays on. In that time, i.e., while that's on, it doesn't matter how many times I press this, it kind of ignores it, and it will stay in that one mode until it's gone off. And now as soon as I press it when it's off, it's going to flip back to the other one. And it doesn't matter how many times I press it within that time. By the way, what happened there is the time ran out and then it quickly flipped over to the other side because I was pressing it for too much. And that's what a sync can do. So a sync can be quite handy. You can think of it as a little bit like when we're using the LFOs and using the square LFO. So I could set this, say, to an 1/8 or something, and then if I was playing a double hi-hat, it would actually keep it on the same side. If you're kind of using it this way, then I'd be saying to you, well, you may be better off just using an LFO. There's not really much point in it. But then if you're saying, yeah, I might be doing that, and then I may be having some funny pauses and doing odd notes, that's when this really comes in handy, because I say your timing doesn't matter. It will always flip-flop. But that's what the sync's doing. It's keeping you in that kind of mode. So what I tend to do is either turn it off and set it to a real high speed that I can't click faster than that. And most things you'll actually put in the sequence that won't be able to quite go that speed either. So it's not really a problem. But as I say, knowing about it, you can use it to your advantage and you can get some interesting patterns which come out of it. So if I was to play, I'm going to have to swap it around again. So let's bring that audio back in again. So I'm going to quickly grab my trigger, put my trigger into here, and there's the audio. I've got to unmute it, haven't I? So it's going to sound interesting when we get to here. So effectively it's going to be playing 2 on 1, and then it's going to flip over. And in fact, it's not actually, right, I'm going to tell myself off for not actually sorting that out. It's because of the pan. Here we go, let's put the pan in. So you get interesting results doing it that way as well. But if I went even faster, so you could even say set this to 16th, and then you could say, well, if I'm doing it in this speed and that speed, it's going to do one thing, and then if I go even faster, then it will stick to one side of the pan rather than going absolutely mad, flipping backwards and forwards. Right, without a doubt, I really have waffled, and this video has actually probably gone on a lot longer than I really expected, but we have covered a lot of different things in here, and so I hope you found it useful, and all I can say is thank you for watching, and bye for now.